Welcome to Medina True Crime. If you love true crime stories, go ahead and subscribe. Also hit the thumbs up button and comment if you'd like. I hope you are having a great morning, day, or evening wherever you are. Today's case is that of Peter Tobin, a Scottish serial killer who received his first murder conviction in his 60s. His criminal history spanned decades, but he eluded police for his most horrible crimes. Peter Tobin had a criminal history that began in his teen years and mostly consisted of what would be classified as minor offenses until 1993. How could he have flown under the radar for so long? Let's delve into the case. Peter Tobin was born in August 1946 and was the youngest of 7 children. He was sent to a reform school at the age of 7, but information could not be found to confirm the exact reason for this. A reform school, however, is a type of school where young people who have broken the law instead of prison back then. One thing about Peter Tobin that stands out is his history of failed relationships. He met and married his first wife Margaret Mountney when they were fairly young. He was 22 and she was 17. During their relationship, he came off as a romantic guy. Things changed, however, or should I say, he began showing his true color after a while. The relationship became violent and there were repeated rapes, beatings, which led to house arrest. At one point, he even cut the throat of his wife's puppy because, according to him, it was just to stop it yelping. When she took issue with this, it is said that he raped her at knife point. As if this was not bad enough, he went to brutalize her with the knife in her private parts, and she was cut so severely that she bled through the neighbor's ceiling. As a result of this assault, she was never able to have children. In 1969, the marriage finally ended when he was imprisoned for forgery and burglary, and she was able to get away. Sylvia Jeffries. She was a 30-year-old nurse, and they went on to have 2 children, one of whom died from breathing difficulties. This marriage would similarly end in violence. After 3 years, Sylvia managed to escape after having enough of his sexual violence. Peter apparently had a proclivity for simulated strangling for sexual gratification. In August of 1989, Peter Tobin married his third and final wife, Kathy Wilson, who was 16 years old. Peter was born in 1946, so that would make him 43 years old in 1989. Once again, Peter was charming in the beginning, but it wouldn't take long for his true character to come out. They had a son which he would use to control her, threatening to throw Daniel down the stairs if she leaves, for example. She was therefore unable to leave him, and so she had to stay while he would bring prostitutes home and abuse them. Kathy was finally able to escape with Daniel. In April 1990, after having squirreled away enough money for bus fare to England, she left him. An article in The Guardian reported that Peter Tobin had attempted an overdose with amitriptyline after his third wife left, the same drug which he would go on to use on his victims. In the 60s, there was a series of killings in Glasgow dubbed the Bible John killings. This killing spree took place over a 20-month period when 3 women, Patricia Docker, 25, Jemima MacDonald, 32, and Helen Puttock, 29, were savagely assaulted and murdered after being picked up from the same dance hall, called the Barrowland Ballroom. The killer's nickname Bible John came from a taxi driver who drove the man who was with his last victim in 1969 and remembered the guy muttering quotes from the Bible. The Bible John investigation became one of the largest investigations carried out in Scottish police history, but no arrest would be forthcoming. Though there is no solid proof, some believe that Peter Tobin could possibly have committed these murders. An article in The Guardian, dated October 11, 2023 reports that the Scotland police may be re-examining these cases. Peter Tobin's first confirmed murder was that of 23-year-old student Angelika Kluk, who was originally from Poland. She had been staying on the premises of St. Patrick's Church in Glasgow, a church where Tobin worked/volunteered as a handyman. Angelika Kluk, who was an undergraduate, was working as a cleaner at St. Patrick's Church, spending the summer in Scotland to help fund her studies. Peter had been off the radar until he resurfaced as Patrick McLaughlin at St. Patrick's. Angelika was last seen alive in Peter's company on September 24, 2006, whom she had met at the church and had grown to trust. During a search of the church, an expert noticed an imperfection in the floor, which exposed a hatch, 28 by 18 inches. It covered a vault containing Angelika's body. The forensic examination found that she had been beaten, raped and stabbed before being hidden in an area under the church floorboards. When Angelika disappeared, the police interviewed all the church staff, which included Peter Tobin. He of course denied knowing anything. The authorities would quickly find out that the trusty handyman was actually Peter Tobin, convicted sex offender. He was arrested in London shortly thereafter. During the investigation of Angelika's murder, the police team noticed that Peter Tobin had been living in Bathgate around the time 15-year-old Vicky Hamilton vanished in 1991. This prompted them to take a closer look into his life. Peter would receive a sentence of at least 21 years in May 2007 by the High Court for the murder of Angelika Kluk. While in prison, police took an interest in two properties where Peter Tobin lived previously. During the course of conducting their interviews, one of the neighbors at the former home in Margate mentioned him digging in his yard. The story, according to Peter, was that he was digging a sandpit which was later filled in as he claimed social services deemed it unsafe. The neighbor didn't think too much of it until the police asked about possible remodel/DIY projects while he was living there. The neighbors would never have suspected what was hidden there. It was a house just like the others around, occupied by someone they described as friendly and helpful. The police would locate two bodies in this garden, belonging to Vicky Hamilton and Dina McNichol. Vicky Hamilton was last seen on February 10, 1991, waiting for a bus to take her home to Reading, near Falkirk. Evidence suggested she had been the victim of a serious sexual assault and was possibly strangled before her body was dismembered. Her body then driven across the border from Scotland when he moved and buried in his garden. The investigation found Peter Tobin's DNA on a plastic bag containing Vicky's upper torso, while his son's DNA was found on the purse that was recovered years earlier in Edinburgh. Peter's son was only about 3 years old at the time, which suggested to police that the then 3-year-old had been given Vicky's purse to play with. Dina McNichol had just finished her high school exams when she went to a festival. She was last seen in August 1991 when she hitchhiked home from the festival with a friend. The friend was dropped off first, and sadly Dina was never seen alive again. Her body was found bound and gagged and only a few feet away from Vicky's. The trial for the murder of Vicky Hamilton lasted a month, during which the jury also heard about amitriptyline, an antidepressant with sedative side effects, which was found in Vicky's liver. In December 2008, Peter Tobin was sentenced to a minimum of 30 years in prison. A year later, he went on trial for Dina's murder. In addition to the presence of his fingerprints, the investigation found that he had stolen more than £2,000 from Dina's account, which further linked him to her. Furthermore, traces of an antidepressant, sleeping pills, and cannabis were found in her liver. It took less than 15 minutes to return a guilty verdict this time. The presiding judge was reported as saying that Peter Tobin should never be released from prison. After 15+ years, Peter Tobin was finally brought to justice for the murders of Vicky Hamilton and Dina McNichols. The police set up Operation Anagram in 2006, which was a multi-jurisdictional operation, to see if they could connect Peter Tobin to any other unsolved crimes. After all, they had only just stumbled upon his additional crimes. In 2009, police released photographs of 32 pieces of jewelry which were in Peter's possession between 1991 and 2006. They had not been claimed by his 3 ex-wives, and police believe they may have been kept as trophies from other unknown victims. Officers believed Peter Tobin had more victims, more than the 3 murders they were able to confirm. He had at least 40 aliases and 150 cars during his life to hide his tracks as he targeted vulnerable women. An enormous amount of time was spent via the anagram operation, piecing together Peter's nomadic lifestyle where he hid behind his numerous identities. It is impossible to know how many women he raped or killed. He refused to give police details about the further murders they think he committed as they questioned him before his death. The anagram operation, however, would wind down in 2011. The Daily Mail reported that, according to criminologist Professor David Wilson, Peter Tobin is reported to have told a prison psychiatrist he killed 48 women before smiling and saying, "Prove it." If the 48 number that is being estimated is accurate, it would make him the second worst identified serial killer in the UK in modern times. He further proved to be as evil and heartless as ever. A month prior to his death in October of 2022, Peter Tobin was in the hospital and appeared to be seriously ill. While there, when it seemed he didn't have much longer to live, the families of the dozens of his suspected victims begged him to come clean. He remained tight-lipped and took all information about his victims with him to the grave, denying the families any closure. My heart goes out to all the victims and their families.